Black woman crashes. Husband's millionaire wedding. With twins. Then slaps him hard. The slap echoed like a gunshot across the manicured vineyard. It wasn't part of the playlist. It wasn't part of the $300,000 wedding plan. It was Simone Carter's hand striking the face of Brandon Ellison, tech millionaire, media darling, and, until 5 seconds ago, a man minutes from marrying into old money legacy. He stumbled back a step, stunned, the crowd around them frozen in collective disbelief. White rose petals drifted to the ground in slow motion, as if nature itself paused to watch. Simone, radiant in a simple but bold navy blue dress, didn't flinch. Instead, she turned her body slightly and gestured to the two identical 5-year-olds standing behind her, both wearing matching suspenders and confused expressions. "Say hi to your kids, Brandon." Gasps erupted from the guests. Cameras clicked. Someone dropped a champagne flute. From her seat on the front row, Madison Wells, the bride wearing a Vera Wang original and a diamond tiara worth more than most cars, slowly stood. Her expression warped from confusion to fury. "What is this?" Madison asked, voice trembling. Brandon looked like his soul had short-circuited. His lips moved, but no sound came out. He glanced between Simone, the twins, and the crowd, hoping this was some kind of prank. "It's the truth," Simone said, stepping closer, her heels crunching against gravel. "I waited 4 years for you to step up, and instead I find you here, playing the perfect fiancé in front of Napa's finest." Madison turned on Brandon. "You know this woman?" He didn't answer. Wrong move. Simone held up a folded piece of paper and slowly unfolded it. "This is a copy of our marriage license. Las Vegas, May 12, 2019. It's real. Signed, witnessed, certified." Guests began murmuring, pulling out their phones, recording, whispering. The officiant slowly backed away. "I tried to keep this private," Simone continued, "but clearly discretion isn't something you value. You ghosted me, Brandon, left me pregnant. You got your millions and just vanished." Madison looked like she might faint. She turned to her father, Charles Wells, a banking mogul whose face was now a shade of scarlet. "Is this a joke?" Charles asked coldly. "Brandon." Brandon finally found his voice. "Simone, we weren't even. I thought we annulled." "You never filed the papers, I did. But the court rejected it because you never signed." Behind Simone, the twins clutched each other's hands. One of them whispered, "Mommy, are we in trouble?" "No, baby," Simone said softly, without breaking eye contact with Brandon. "We're just fixing things." Security guards had begun to inch forward from the perimeter of the ceremony, unsure of whether to intervene. Madison caught their movement and snapped, "Don't touch her, I want to hear this." The energy had shifted. This was no longer a wedding. This was a reckoning. Simone handed a folder to Madison. Inside were DNA test results, child support filings Brandon had ignored, and email receipts. "Just so you know, I didn't come here empty-handed." Madison flipped through them with a trembling hand. Her eyes narrowed, but not at Simone. At Brandon. "You told me you were never married." I didn't think it counted. It was Vegas." Simone barked out a laugh, sharp and bitter. "I counted, Brandon. Our kids counted. You just didn't want us to." A woman in the back shouted, "He's trash!" Others murmured agreement, and then Madison did something no one expected. She stepped aside, walked down the aisle toward Simone, and looked down at the twins. "What are their names?" "Isaac and Elijah." Madison bent slightly to their level. "Hey, guys, I'm sorry this is happening to you today." She looked back up at Simone and added, "I had no idea." "I believe you," Simone replied. Then Madison walked straight back to her father and said calmly, "Call off the wedding." Brandon spun around. Wait, Madison, you don't even know everything yet. Charles cut him off with a raised hand. I know enough. Brandon looked like a man trying to wake from a nightmare. This isn't fair, Simone. You ambushed me. Ambush, she said. This is an ambush. Try raising twins alone while their father becomes a billionaire off the very dreams you once shared. Try explaining to your sons why they've never met the man whose eyes they inherited. He opened his mouth to reply. She didn't let him. Your money can't fix this. Your silence can't erase it. And your cowardice doesn't exempt you from being their father. She turned to leave. The twins followed, holding hands. But before she took a full step, Simone glanced over her shoulder. You owe them an apology, but I won't hold my breath. She walked out, her head high, the whispers of the crowd following her like a trail of truth. Behind her, the dream wedding crumbled. Photographers turned away from the flower wall to chase Simone down the gravel path. A drone hovered in the air above them, capturing it all, and the world by morning would know exactly who Brandon Ellison really was. The wedding was supposed to be Brandon's flawless rebranding, one that merged old money with new tech wealth. But as the last echo of Simone's slap faded from the hills of Napa Valley, the fallout spread like wildfire. That night, Brandon sat alone in the honeymoon suite meant for two, his tuxedo shirt unbuttoned, tie loose, staring at the headline glowing on his tablet. Black woman interrupts millionaire vineyard wedding. Claims groom is her husband and father of twins. Below it, a paused video thumbnail of Simone's hand mid-swing. He swiped it off the screen in frustration, but the damage was already done. Social media was ablaze. Simone Carter was trending. So was #Brandon the Ghost Dad. The worst part wasn't the public backlash. It was the silence in his phone. No texts from his publicist, no missed calls from Madison, and absolutely nothing from Charles Wells, whose political ambitions had now been torpedoed by Brandon's recklessness. But one notification did flash. Missed call, private number, 3 times. He didn't need to guess. He knew it was her. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Simone sat on the worn leather couch in her modest apartment, still in the dress from the wedding. Her sons were asleep in the room behind her, finally knocked out after hours of sugar, confusion, and questions no child should have to ask. You were brave today, her best friend Tasha said, pouring her a glass of red wine. But damn, girl, that was war. Simone nodded, staring at her phone on the table. She hadn't turned it on since leaving the vineyard. She didn't want to see the comments. Or maybe she just wasn't ready for what came next. I had to do it, she whispered. Not just for me, for them. They need to know who their father is, even if he's a fraud. Tasha sat beside her. You think he'll try to come back? Please, Brandon doesn't do messy. He runs. Simone picked up the wedding invitation she'd been mailed anonymously. No return address, no note, just a gilded card with their names and the date. That's the only reason I knew where to find him, she said. Somebody wanted me to crash it. Tasha raised an eyebrow. You think it was Madison? No way, she was blindsided. Then who? Simone looked down at the card again, heart pounding. It was embossed with the Wells family crest. Old money, private, exclusive. Someone from inside that world wanted Brandon exposed. The next morning, Brandon showed up at his lawyer's office in downtown San Francisco, eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched. His attorney, Devin Roth, was already waiting, sipping espresso with a tablet in hand. This is a disaster, Devin said without looking up. Do you understand the legal implications of what just happened? I need this annulled. Yesterday, Devin finally looked up, unimpressed. You're still legally married, Brandon. The court rejected the annulment because you ghosted the process. She's not lying. Brandon paced the office like a trapped animal. What about custody? The kids? You don't get to talk about custody until you acknowledge Jim paternity, which, by the way, has already been established. She filed those documents months ago. I didn't even know. Devon shot him a look. You ignored the certified mail. I warned you not to. Brandon dropped into a chair. Then what do I do now? You face it. You make a statement. You apologize. You start damage control. I'm not apologizing for something I didn't do intentionally. Devon sighed. That's not how public perception works. Meanwhile, Madison stood in her father's penthouse office, arms crossed, still in yesterday's makeup. Charles Wells stared out over the San Francisco skyline, silent. Finally, he spoke. You embarrassed me. I was the one humiliated. I don't care about your feelings, Madison. I care about my legacy. That wedding was supposed to solidify our brand. Now it's a meme. She stepped forward. Did you send the invitation to Simone? His silence answered her question. Madison blinked. You set Brandon up? I exposed him. There's a difference. You were marrying a liar. Better to find out now than later. Madison's lip quivered. You used me as a pawn. I protected you. She turned on her heel and left, slamming the glass door behind her. That night, Simone finally turned her phone back on. Text after text rolled in. News outlets, podcasts, TV appearances. Most she ignored, until one message stopped her cold. From an unknown number, we need to talk about the twins. B. She stared at it for a long time before typing. They're not a PR problem. They're your sons. Then she hit send. But even as she tried to move forward, Simone knew deep down this was just the beginning. Because someone powerful had helped her expose Brandon, and that meant someone else had their own agenda. A knock came at her door. When she opened it, a man in a suit stood there holding an envelope. For Simone Carter, he said. Inside was a legal notice. Brandon had filed an emergency petition. He wanted temporary visitation rights, twins she had raised alone. Now he wanted access. Simone's hands trembled as she folded the paper. Tasha stood behind her, voice low. You ready for the real fight? Simone took a deep breath. I didn't crash that wedding to make noise. I did it to make change. And I'm not stopping now. The parking lot behind the community legal aid office buzzed with city sounds, horns honking, a siren wailing somewhere, voices floating in the afternoon heat. Inside the modest brick building, Jasmine paced in front of a whiteboard littered with court dates and client names. Her curls were pulled into a loose bun, and the coffee in her hand had gone cold hours ago. But her mind was racing. Across the room, her best friend and paralegal, Denise, sat at a desk strewn with folders. Denise watched her quietly, then finally said, You've been pacing like a caged lion for 30 minutes. Either talk to me or wear a groove in the floor. Jasmine stopped, gripping her coffee cup tightly. He's marrying her next month. The press release just dropped. Denise blinked. Wait. Micah, he's actually going through with it? Yeah, Jasmine said. Her voice was tight. A millionaire wedding at a vineyard in Santa Barbara. It's all over social media. And guess who had no idea? Denise's eyes widened. You mean he never even filed for divorce? No. We're still legally married. Jasmine's voice cracked just slightly. And he's out here posing for engagement photos in a designer tux like the past 6 years meant nothing. Denise stood up, walking over to her friend. Girl, that is straight-up bigamy. Jasmine stared out the window. Her reflection in the glass looked like a woman she didn't recognize, worn down, betrayed, but burning from the inside out. It gets worse. He hasn't sent a dime for the twins in 3 months. No calls, no visits. Just vanished. Denise cursed under her breath. You should take him to court. Nail him to the damn wall. I'm going to do more than that. Jasmine turned, eyes blazing. I'm going to crash that wedding, but not for drama, for truth. I want him to look me in the eye while standing in front of his whole new life and explain why he abandoned his family like we were trash. Denise took a beat, then smiled grimly. You always did like making an entrance. That night, Jasmine sat on the edge of her bed, watching her twins, Ava and Amir, sleep soundly. Their tiny chests rose and fell under matching Paw Patrol blankets. She tucked a curl behind Ava's ear, then kissed Amir's cheek. I'm doing this for you, she whispered. The next day, Jasmine pulled every string she had. She called in favors from law school classmates, traced legal loopholes, checked the marriage license application Micah had fueled, falsely, under penalty of perjury. And she wasn't just going to show up with drama, she was building a legal case. 3 days later, her phone rang while she was reviewing documents. It was her old college roommate, Tyler, now a digital media consultant. You ready for a little firestorm? What did you do? Jasmine asked, suspicious. I leaked the wedding invite to a few wedding gossip pages, the ones that live for scandals. And I may have hinted there's an estranged wife and twins nobody's talking about. You what? You wanted a stage, right? Tyler replied coolly. Now you've got one. All you need to do is walk on. Jasmine sat there stunned. Then a slow, cold smile spread across her face. At the same time, 300 miles away in Santa Barbara, Micah stood in a showroom, trying on cufflinks that cost more than Jasmine's rent. Across from him, Vanessa Whitmore, daughter of a real estate mogul, flipped through linen samples without looking up. They're saying we might get a small write-up in Vogue Weddings, she said. Not front page, but still. Micah, are you even listening? He was, but he was distracted. His assistant had just texted him a link, a gossip blog. Headline, Millionaire Groom's Secret Family Revealed? Micah felt his stomach drop. Vanessa narrowed her eyes. What's that look? Micah clicked off his phone. Nothing, just a scheduling conflict. Vanessa wasn't convinced, but she returned to her linens. Micah stepped out into the hallway and dialed a number he hadn't called in months. Jasmine didn't answer. Back in L.A., she looked at her buzzing phone, watched it flash Micah calling, and then let it die in her hand. She had nothing to say. Yet. Denise appeared in the doorway holding a folder. You sure you want to go through with this? Absolutely, Jasmine said. He built his new life on a lie. Time to tear the foundation out from under him. As Jasmine turned back to her desk, the twins' laughter echoed from the living room. She smiled for the first time that day. Let Micah have his millionaire wedding. She was about to give him a millionaire reckoning. Jasmine stood outside the vintage bridal boutique in downtown L.A., her reflection shimmering on the window glass. She wasn't there to buy a dress, at least not for herself. Inside, rows of satin and lace sparkled under golden lighting. Brides sipped champagne as stylists fluttered around them. She watched for a beat, then walked in with the poise of a woman who had nothing left to lose. The bell above the door chimed. Heads turned. Some looked surprised to see a black woman in jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie in a place like this. Jasmine didn't flinch. I'm looking for a tailor, she said calmly to the receptionist at the front desk. I need something custom, dramatic, and I need it fast. The young woman blinked. Do you have an appointment? No. But I've got a story that'll blow the roof off a millionaire wedding, and I plan to be the main headline. So either find me someone who can sew or get out of my way. A moment later, a seasoned designer named Martina appeared from the back, Her silver hair swept into a high bun. She looked Jasmine up and down and smiled slowly. "You look like a woman on a mission." "You have no idea," Jasmine replied. Back at her apartment, the twins were with Denise, who had turned the living room into a makeshift craft station to distract them. Jasmine returned hours later, exhausted but triumphant. She collapsed onto the couch beside Denise, dropping a garment bag on the table. "You bought a dress?" Denise asked, eyes wide. Jasmine shook her head. "I designed one from scratch. It's not a wedding dress, it's armor." Denise nodded approvingly. "You're really going through with this?" Jasmine stared at the ceiling. "Micah's not just marrying Vanessa. He's trying to erase me, like I was never part of the story, like our kids never happened. I'm not crashing this wedding for revenge. I'm crashing it for truth." 2 days later, Jasmine stood in the courtroom downtown with her attorney. A fast-tracked emergency petition to block the marriage on grounds of bigamy had been filed. The judge, a stern black woman in her 60s, eyed Jasmine with professional detachment. "Mrs. Rivera, are you saying your husband is remarrying without divorcing you first?" "That's exactly what I'm saying, Your Honor, and I have the paperwork to prove it." Her attorney handed over documents: marriage certificate, birth certificates of the twins, financial statements, and a lack of divorce filings. The judge flipped through the evidence silently, then looked up. "This is serious. If what you're saying is true, he could be facing charges." Jasmine nodded, gripping the table. "I don't care about the charges. I care about the lie. He's building a whole new life on a foundation of betrayal." The judge looked over her glasses. "You'll get your hearing, but I must warn you. He's lawyered up, and his legal team is aggressive." "I'm not afraid," Jasmine said quietly. "I just want the truth to speak louder than the money." Outside the courtroom, she took a deep breath. The air smelled like concrete and exhaust fumes, but to her it was the scent of movement, of forward momentum. She checked her phone. No calls from Micah, no texts, not a word. But someone else had reached out. A voicemail from Vanessa. She played it, her expression unreadable. "Hi, Jasmine. I think we need to talk. I found out something today. About Micah. And about you. I didn't know. Please call me." Jasmine stared at the phone in her hand for a long time. Then she slipped it back into her coat pocket without replying. At that moment, her phone buzzed again. A notification. One of the wedding blogs had just gone viral with new footage, old photos of Micah and Jasmine, with the twins smiling at a park. The caption read, "Millionaire grooms secret wife and kids, the plot thickens." Micah saw it too. He was in his hotel suite, staring at the screen in disbelief, as his publicist screamed into the phone, "You need to control this narrative, Micah. Now." Vanessa sat across the room, holding a printed copy of their wedding itinerary and the birth certificates she had just received from a private investigator. Her voice was cold. "Are they yours?" Micah opened his mouth, closed it, then said nothing. Vanessa stood, walked past him, and stopped at the door. "I don't know who disgusts me more, you for lying, or me for believing any of this was real." She slammed the door behind her. Micah dropped into a chair, hands on his head, breathing shallow. The storm was just beginning, and Jasmine was holding the thunder. The morning of the wedding dawned with a brittle calm, the kind of stillness that settles over a city right before a storm rolls in. Jasmine stood at her apartment window, watching the sun rise over Los Angeles. The sky was streaked with gold, but her thoughts were shadowed. She'd barely slept. Her lawyer had confirmed the hearing would proceed first thing Monday morning. But today was the wedding. The lie was about to be cemented with champagne toasts and vows that meant nothing. And she wasn't going to let that happen quietly. Jasmine turned from the window and zipped up the garment bag hanging on the closet door. The custom dress inside wasn't white, and it wasn't delicate. It was a deep, commanding red, elegant, fitted, and unforgettable. A designer masterpiece that whispered vengeance. Denise knocked gently and peeked inside. "You ready?" "As I'll ever be," Jasmine said, smoothing her curls back from her face. "I still think this is crazy." "Probably, but it's necessary." They loaded the twins into the back seat of Denise's car. Jasmine kissed them on the forehead. "You two stay with Auntie until Mommy gets back, okay?" The kids nodded, sensing something important but too young to grasp the weight of it. Denise looked her friend in the eye. "You sure you want to bring this storm into a public wedding? With cameras, guests, press?" "I didn't bring the storm," Jasmine said calmly. "Micah did the moment he decided to rewrite history without erasing the truth." Across town, Micah adjusted his cufflinks in the mirror of his suite at the Beverly Hills Rosewood. The space was luxurious, an entire floor draped in white roses and gold-accented furnishings. He looked sharp, but there was tension in his jaw, an unease he couldn't shake. The knock at the door startled him. His best man, Terrence, stepped in with his phone in hand. "Bro, you need to see this." Terrence handed him the phone. A live blog was running photos of Jasmine in the courthouse, holding hands with her attorney, dressed like a woman with nothing left to hide. The headline read, "Exclusive. Is Micah Ramsey already married? Bombshell court filing days before wedding." Micah's face turned pale. He grabbed the phone and cursed under his breath. How did she even find out about the wedding? "You seriously asking that?" Terrence said. "You left her. You left your kids. You expected her to just stay silent while you married someone else?" Micah didn't answer. His phone rang again, his publicist. But before he could answer, the venue coordinator called. "The bride has arrived. We're ready to begin." In the grand ballroom, hundreds of guests took their seats. The press had already started snapping photos. Everything looked perfect. Vanessa appeared at the far end of the aisle in a diamond-crusted white gown, escorted by her father. She looked stunning, but her eyes searched the room nervously. She hadn't spoken to Micah since the confrontation 2 nights ago, and she was still unsure if this wedding was moving forward for love or for image. The music began to swell, but it stopped abruptly. Gasps filled the room as a figure stepped into the aisle, not in white, but in red. Jasmine. Her heels clicked confidently against the marble floor as every head in the audience turned. A few people stood, thinking she might be part of some elaborate performance. She wasn't. She walked slowly, deliberately, stopping halfway down the aisle. Then, pulling something from her clutch, she lifted a manila envelope high into the air. "My name is Jasmine Rivera," she said, her voice loud and unwavering. "And before this sham of a wedding continues, I think the guests deserve to know the truth." Vanessa froze at the altar, eyes wide. Micah's face collapsed. "No, Jasmine." But she wasn't done. "I am Micah's legal wife. We were never divorced, and these," she raised 2 copies of birth certificates, "are our children. Twins, 5 years old, abandoned by the man standing at this altar." Chaos erupted. People gasped. Phones came out. A few shouted. Vanessa's father looked at Micah like he wanted to punch him. The officiant stepped back, clearly uncomfortable. Vanessa slowly descended from the altar and stood a few feet from Jasmine. "Is this true?" she asked Micah. He couldn't speak. "You knew," Jasmine said to Vanessa softly now. "Maybe not at first, but somewhere deep down, you knew something didn't add up." "I hired a PI after the courthouse story broke," Vanessa replied. "I didn't want to believe it." "And yet here you are." Jasmine stepped closer to Micah. "For years I kept your secret because I didn't want to hurt the twins. But today, Today you are about to erase us, rewrite your life like we never existed." She raised her hand and slapped him across the face. The crack echoed through the ballroom. Micah didn't move. Jasmine turned and walked out with her head held high, the red dress flowing behind her like a flag. Outside, reporters swarmed. She looked at them and simply said, "The truth is out now. He can't hide from it anymore." Inside, the wedding unraveled, and for the first time in 5 years, Jasmine finally felt like she had taken her life back. The video of Jasmine storming the wedding went viral in under an hour. Millions had watched it play out. The stunning red dress, the calm declaration, the slap heard around the world. By sunset, her name was trending across every platform, and the tabloids were calling it the Millionaire Wedding Meltdown. But the aftermath was far more complicated than headlines. Jasmine sat on the couch in Denise's apartment, the twins asleep in the other room, her phone buzzing relentlessly on the table. She ignored it. She didn't need more reporters asking for exclusive interviews or gossip pages offering to tell her side. The only thing she cared about now was her kids and what came next. Denise placed a mug of tea in her hands. "You good?" Jasmine exhaled slowly. "Good might be a stretch, but I'm standing." Denise sat beside her. "I have to say, that was some legendary stuff. You didn't just crash a wedding, you rewrote the ending in real time." Jasmine gave a tired laugh. "Yeah, but now I have to deal with the fallout. He's still their father. This isn't over." Meanwhile, across town, Micah was drowning in damage control. His publicist, his legal team, even his brand managers were flooding his phone. "You need to release a statement," one PR advisor said. "Deny everything," another urged. Micah threw the phone across the room. He'd lost control of the narrative. Worse, he hadn't just humiliated himself. He'd humiliated Vanessa, her family, and every corporate sponsor attached to his brand. The door to the hotel suite creaked open. Vanessa stepped in, no longer in her gown. She'd changed into jeans and a sweatshirt, her hair pulled back. She looked nothing like a bride, and everything like someone done pretending. "You embarrassed me in front of the entire country," she said quietly. Micah opened his mouth, but she cut him off. "Don't. Just don't. You didn't just lie to me. You made me complicit in a lie about children." "I didn't know she'd show up like that," Micah muttered. Vanessa blinked. "That's your defense?" She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "This is your ring, and this is the bill for the wedding. Don't worry, my father's lawyer will be in touch." She turned to leave, then paused. "One last thing. You might still have money, but your reputation, you won't get that back. Not from me. Not from the world." As the door closed behind her, Micah sank to the floor. 3 days later, Jasmine walked into the downtown courthouse holding a folder of documents and a silent resolve. Her attorney, Gloria Banks, met her at the security entrance. "Are you ready for this?" Gloria asked. "As I'll ever be," Jasmine replied. The courtroom was crowded. Reporters had been barred from filming, but sketches and quotes still made their way into every outlet. Micah showed up wearing a navy suit, clean-shaven, his eyes bloodshot. His legal team flanked him like a shield. The judge entered and called the case to order. Jasmine stood and laid out her request clearly. She was filing for sole custody of the twins on grounds of abandonment, public negligence, and emotional endangerment. Micah's attorney countered immediately. "My client is prepared to co-parent. He acknowledges his past mistakes and seeks joint custody." Jasmine's voice didn't rise, but it carried across the room. "He hasn't seen his children in almost 4 years. Not a birthday, not a holiday, nothing. His name is on their birth certificates, but he never earned the title of father. Micah stood suddenly. I made mistakes. I thought I could start over. I never meant to hurt you or them. She turned to him. You didn't just hurt me, Micah. You tried to erase us. Like we were a bad chapter you could skip over. But you don't get to rewrite the book. The judge took notes, then addressed both parties. Due to the high-profile nature of this case, and in the interest of the children's stability, I'm ordering a temporary ruling. Mrs. Rivera will have primary custody, and Mr. Ramsey will be granted supervised visitation until a full review is completed. Jasmine nodded. It wasn't total victory, but it was a start. As they exited the courtroom, a small crowd gathered outside. Reporters called her name. But one voice stood out. A woman approached her, older, dressed in a modest gray suit. Ms. Rivera? Yes? My name is Barbara Grant. I work with the State Commission for Family Advocacy. We've been following your case. Quietly, we're very impressed. Jasmine frowned. Why? Because you didn't use wealth or connections. You used truth. And we could use someone like you on the board to help other mothers facing systems stacked against them. Jasmine blinked, stunned. You want me to work with you? If you're interested, we'd love to have you. Jasmine looked down at the folder in her hands, then over at the courthouse steps where so many women before her had walked out defeated. She turned back to Barbara and said, Let's talk. Because maybe this wasn't the end of the story. Maybe it was just the beginning of a much bigger one. Cheong-sae. The silence in the courtroom was deceptive. On the surface, everything seemed orderly, the polished wood panels, the flags on either side of the judge's bench, the low hum of the air conditioning. But beneath the surface, tension buzzed like a live wire. Jasmine Rivera sat upright at the plaintiff's table, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Dressed in a sleek charcoal gray suit that matched the steel in her eyes, she looked every bit the woman who had walked through fire and came out unburned. Across from her sat Micah Ramsey, his new bride-to-be, Clarissa Monroe, whispering something into his ear. Clarissa was all polished gold, hair, jewelry, ambition, and she had the kind of self-assurance that came from money, or at least from proximity to it. But today her usual smugness was laced with visible irritation. She hadn't expected this hearing to happen so soon. Nor had she expected Jasmine to show up, not just with lawyers, but with evidence. Judge Thompson, a stern woman in her early 60s, with sharp glasses and sharper instincts, cleared her throat. We're here to discuss the petition filed by Ms. Rivera concerning the violation of joint custody agreements and potential financial misconduct by Mr. Ramsey. Micah looked like he wanted the floor to open and swallow him whole. The room quieted as Jasmine stood. Her voice was calm but carried weight. Your Honor, when my ex-husband and I divorced, we agreed, on paper, that our twins, Maya and Malik, would be prioritized, that every decision he made would include them. But over the last 2 years, he's failed them repeatedly. This isn't just about missed pickups or ignoring their school events. It's about a deeper issue. It's about erasure. The judge tilted her head. Go on, Miss Rivera. Jasmine continued. When Micah became engaged to Miss Monroe, he did not tell me directly. I learned about it from a tabloid article that included photos of them vacationing in St. Bart's, while Maya was recovering from pneumonia. Clarissa scoffed, but was quickly silenced by her attorney. And recently, Jasmine said, voice tightening, I was informed that Micah filed paperwork listing himself and Miss Monroe as the sole guardians for a joint trust fund. My children's names were not included. I have the documents here, Your Honor. She handed them to the bailiff, who brought them forward. Judge Thompson reviewed them with a slight frown forming. Micah finally spoke. "This is being blown out of proportion. I had every intention of updating the trust." "But you didn't," Jasmine snapped, her composure cracking for a moment. "You erased them. Again." Clarissa leaned forward. "Let's not pretend this is about the kids. This is about jealousy." Jasmine turned, eyes fierce. "I was married to him when he was living out of his car. I worked 2 jobs while he wrote business proposals, and when the money came in, I supported him. But once he got a taste of that world, the yachts, the suits, the fake smiles, he left. Not just me, he left them." The judge banged her gavel. "Enough!" The tension in the room was suffocating now. Jasmine's attorney, Mr. Langston, stood. "Your Honor, we're asking for a full audit of Mr. Ramsey's financials as they relate to the children, and we are also requesting that any further decisions regarding the children's education, medical needs, or financial planning include the mother's written consent." Judge Thompson nodded. "Understood. Mr. Ramsey, your response?" Micah hesitated. "I made mistakes, I'll own that, but I love my kids. I just wanted to start fresh." "Start fresh?" Jasmine repeated, laughing bitterly. "You can't start fresh by pretending your past didn't exist." Then something unexpected happened. Micah looked at the judge, then at Jasmine, and then, surprisingly, at Clarissa. "I'm withdrawing from the current trust. I want it amended to include only Maya and Malik. Clarissa had nothing to do with it. This is on me." Clarissa's head snapped toward him. "Excuse me?" Micah turned to her quietly but firmly. "I made a promise to them before I ever met you, and I broke it." Clarissa stood abruptly, collecting her purse. "Well, if you're choosing that mess over us, then good luck." She stormed out, the click of her heels echoing in the hushed courtroom. Judge Thompson exhaled slowly. "Mr. Ramsey, your statements will be entered into the record. A hearing to finalize the trust amendments will be scheduled. Ms. Rivera, your requests for joint decision-making are granted, effective immediately." A small cheer broke out behind Jasmine. Denise, her best friend, had been silently watching from the benches. She clapped a hand over her mouth, teary-eyed. The judge banged her gavel. "Court adjourned." As people began to file out, Jasmine sat in stunned silence. Not because she won, but because Micah had done something she didn't expect. He'd owned up, publicly, without blaming her. It didn't erase the pain, but it gave her something unexpected, a sense of closure. Micah approached slowly. "I don't expect forgiveness, but maybe one day our kids will know I tried to fix it." Jasmine nodded. "That's between you and them, but today, you took a step." Outside the courthouse, the press waited. Cameras flashed, microphones stretched forward. Jasmine shielded her eyes from the light and whispered to Denise, "Let's go. I don't want today to be about spectacle. I want it to be about truth." They walked past the reporters, hand in hand. As Jasmine stepped into the sunlight, she realized something. She wasn't in Micah's shadow anymore. She was her own light, and it was blinding. She didn't need revenge. She had peace. And that was louder than any headline Micah could ever buy. The room had never been this quiet. Micah stood in the middle of the grand ballroom, tuxedo jacket unbuttoned, hair disheveled and face pale under the crystal chandelier's golden glow. Around him, guests murmured, unsure whether to stay or slip away. Jasmine stood just 10 feet away, the twins beside her, Maya gripping her hand, Malik glaring at the man he once called Dad. It wasn't just a wedding that had crashed, it was a fantasy. Micah's fiancée, Bianca, was no longer anywhere in sight. Her designer heels lay abandoned at the base of the dais, like breadcrumbs marking her escape. Jasmine hadn't planned to humiliate anyone. That wasn't her nature. But after everything, after the silence, the lies, the betrayal, this confrontation had become inevitable. "You lied to everyone," Jasmine said, voice even. "But most of all, you lied to yourself." Micah opened his mouth but closed it again. There was no defense left, no script to follow. He was a man caught in the collapse of his own illusion. Jasmine continued, "You called me bitter, ungrateful, a burden. You told the world I wasn't enough. But I raised 2 children while building your empire behind the scenes. You rewrote the narrative to make yourself the hero, and now all I did was show the truth." A beat passed, then another. The silence shattered when Denise stepped forward with her phone, projecting a live video feed onto the venue's media screen. It was footage of Jasmine's speech at the gala 2 nights prior. Powerful, raw, and unapologetic. "I've been silenced, dismissed, and underestimated," Jasmine's recorded voice echoed through the room. "But I've never been defeated." People gasped, some nodded. One of Micah's business partners slowly backed away toward the exit. The truth, once dismissed, now stood undeniable in digital clarity. Micah's mother, Mrs. Ramsey, stepped forward and looked Jasmine in the eyes. "I never gave you the respect you deserved," she said softly, "but I see it now, and I'm sorry." Jasmine blinked in surprise. For a moment, the anger simmered down, replaced with the ache of long-denied recognition. Then Micah spoke, breaking the spell. "What do you want from me, Jasmine? You want the company, the money." "No," she said. "I already have something far more valuable, the truth, my dignity, and my children's pride." Maya and Malik each took one of her hands. Micah's shoulders slumped. "I don't know who I am without you." "That's not my problem anymore," she said quietly. Just then, a group of reporters arrived at the venue. Word had spread quickly thanks to the viral clip Denise uploaded. Cameras flashed and questions erupted. "Ms. Rivera, is it true you're launching your own tech startup? Are the rumors about Safe Steps expanding nationwide real? Do you plan to take legal action against Mr. Ramsey?" Jasmine paused, standing tall. "No comment. Tonight's not about revenge. It's about rebirth." She turned to leave, but not before facing Micah one last time. "I hope someday you learn how to love people for who they are, not just what they can give you," she said. "But I'm done being your lesson." Outside, the night air was crisp. Jasmine inhaled deeply, the coolness reminding her she was still here, still standing. Denise caught up with her, shaking with adrenaline. "That was some movie-level drama back there," Denise grinned. "You sure you don't want to start a talk show?" Jasmine laughed, real, full-hearted laughter. "I've had enough drama to last a lifetime." They walked toward a waiting car, the twins bouncing with excitement. "Mommy, you were like a superhero," Malik exclaimed. Jasmine kissed his forehead. "No cape required, just truth and courage." As the car pulled away, she looked back at the hotel, now small in the distance. It felt like a lifetime had passed since she walked in. And in a way, it had. Weeks later, Jasmine sat at her new office desk, smaller than Micah's old one, but brighter. Behind her was a mural painted by local kids, a woman with brown skin and natural curls standing in a storm, holding 2 children by her side. Safe Steps had become more than an idea. It was a movement. Her movement. She scrolled through an inbox full of support letters, volunteer offers, and thank yous from women across the country. Then she opened one final email, an anonymous donation of $100,000, with the note, "For Maya and Malik, from someone trying to do better." She didn't need to guess who sent it. She closed her laptop, stood up, and stepped onto the balcony. Below, New York pulsed with noise and chaos, but Jasmine had found her rhythm, her purpose, not defined by heartbreak, not reduced by injustice, but strengthened by surviving it. She turned to the camera Denise had set up for a short video they planned to post on Safe Steps' new YouTube channel. Jasmine smiled, steady and bright. "If my story moved you," she began, "please like, subscribe, and share. Not because I need the numbers, but because there's a woman out there right now, just like I was, tired, alone, unseen, and she needs to know there's hope." She paused, letting the silence land like a heartbeat. Justice doesn't always come with a gavel. Sometimes it starts with one voice. Yours. Let's be louder, together. As the screen faded to black, her words lingered like an anthem. The end.